You're listening to the 12 Days of Crusademas 2023, brought to you by the Longbox Crusade.
Eight stars are rising.
Hello and welcome to the 8th day of the 12 Days of Crusademas for 2023. Brought to you by the Longbox Crusade, the 12 Days of Crusademas is our gift to the podcast community to celebrate the holiday season. And we are celebrating this joyous season by sharing with you some comic book titles that may have gotten by you in the past. Each day of the 12 Days of Crusademas will be bringing you a hidden gem of a comic series, brought to you either by our holly jolly co-hosts or one of our podcast celebrity guests, until we get all the way to December 25th, Christmas Day. Yay! I'm always excited when it's Christmas Day. Woo! I'm your host for this 8th day of Crusademas, Pat Sampson, aka Christatos Kringle. Ho, 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 ho. And hey, since it's the 8th day, it's 8 Maids of Milking, right? So, as we've been doing, I'm going to give my joke, and then we'll probably get to Jarrett with his joke, and maybe somebody else has got another joke. But
I started this bit. I started the Christmas joke bit. Proceed, Pat.
And we thank you for doing it. I just bumped it up just a notch more to make it come together. You might say a culmination of jokes.
Culmination.
Yes. See what I did there? That's bits and bits upon bits. Layers of bits. Christmas bits just spitting out. Anyway. Speaking about jokes, so why was the cow afraid to go to the beauty salon? Anybody want to take a guess?
Thought the makeover would be an utter failure.
Ooh, that is a good one. That is a good one, Jason. She was worried she'd end up getting milked for all that she's worth.
I like my chances tonight, boys.
Yeah. Well, you know, I set him up for Jarrett to knock him down. And that's how it rolls. But speaking about knocking them down and speaking about Maids of Milking, I have 4 of the lovely Maids of Milking with me today. Well, 3, well, 4, I guess. Yeah. Well, we got some maids that are
This people.
Laurel, how many maids of milking do we have here tonight?
Well, if you count everybody in the, well, we'll see. Anyway, joining me as always for this Christmas Day, sitting around with hot cocoa in hand, we have Jared Albrick, the yard sale artist, a.k.a. the Christmas Probe. Merry Christmas, Jared.
Merry Christmas. That is what I want to go with, the Christmas Probe. All right, so Santa Claus gets a new reindeer. This new reindeer's name is Gary, and he starts showing Gary around the workshop. And the first place he goes is procurement, where the elves get all the parts. He introduces him to the elf in charge of procurement. He says, this elf here in charge of procurement, his name is Bruce. And Gary's like, hey, Bruce. He's like, what's up? He says, nice to meet you. He said, let's go to assembly. And as they're going to assembly, he goes, don't loan Bruce any money. And Gary goes, okay. So they go to assembly, and they say, hey, this is the guy who's in charge of assembly. This is the elf in charge of assembly. His name is Tim. Nice to meet you, Tim. And as they're walking away, he says, don't give Tim any money. Don't loan him any money. It's like, all right. So then they go to shipping and wrapping. He says, shipping, wrapping. This guy's name's Chris. He's the elf in charge. Cool. He goes, I'll take you to the barn. On the way to the barn, he goes, don't loan Chris any money. And Gary says, what is the deal? Every time you introduce me to an elf, tell him don't loan any money. And Santa says, hey, they're always coming up short.
Okay, that's not bad. That's not bad. I just want to say, like, it didn't get a ha-ha, but that was not...
I like it because it's a long joke for like a not a great payoff.
For a short payoff, yeah. Or a long joke for a really short payoff. You could say maybe you milked it for all it was worth.
I'm only putting 2% into it, Pat. I'm skimming right
through failures.
Thank you, Jared. The Christmas Probe, and that is what's written on your stocking.
Yes.
So I want to hand it to you as we're all been doing your part to putting up decorations. I'm handing it over to you to put it up on the Christmas to maybe start you.
Let you hold on to it for a minute. And there's a box of lights I saw out in the foyer. I'm gonna go string those while you introduce like Jason or Delvin.
Okay. I appreciate that.
Okay.
Yep. All right. Thank you.
Don't look for me in the kitchen just drinking hot cocoa because I definitely won't be there. I'll be out stringing up the lights.
Okay. I will hope to see that get done. In the meantime, let's go ahead and talk to Jason, the Christmas Weasel. How are you, Jason, the Weasel Skull?
Just 1 year, Pat. Just 1 year. I wish I could just say hello to you folks and introduce myself to the audience, but every year as we get near Christmas time, it's if you want my body and you think I'm sexy, come on, sugar, let me know. Boys,
hey,
why
Jane. Yeah.
in all of God's creation is there a box of lights just sitting out there in the hallway?
What do you mean? Jared said he was taking care of it. Yeah, Jared said he's taking care of it.
Death Probe in there drinking hot chocolate in the kitchen.
He said he wasn't in.
He tells you this every year. He's a liar. He's a liar. Get out there and get those boxes. Get them up. Get them up. Death Probe, put that hot chocolate down. You got to get the legal, man.
All right, I'm on my way.
You got to get the legal. I saw Ruth cracking heat. We can't have that in here. We can't have that come Christmas. We got to keep us separated from the fire and water boys. You know this. You know this.
Yes.
Delvin, baby, you just stand there. You can be the bouncer. You can be the bouncer. You all fit. Nobody gonna mess with you.
Mary Jane. What? That's a great idea. That's a great idea, Mary Jane.
That's not a great idea. She promised me I could be the bouncer. Bouncer? You like a volleyball, you like a basketball, like a big beach ball. You're gonna get bounced. Now bounce yourself up and help out these folks getting these decorations up. I gotta do everything. Christmas time. All right, on with the show. Wait a minute. There's somebody else here. Who's this guy over here with the reindeer ears in the Santa hat? What's your name, sir?
Tony.
What was it before you changed it?
Anthony.
Rest in peace, Sean. Rest in peace.
Thank you, Mary Jane. Thanks for visiting us.
Merry Christmas, everybody.
A perfectly good scam going on until Mary Jane blew it up for me.
I'm glad she's around. I am so glad she's around to help keep everything straight and get done. So without her,
I think
she promised me I could be the bouncer this year.
You guys should forget about putting up your own lights. I got a service that comes out every year. They put them up, they take them down.
Well, Tony, if you're willing to up your Crusader Club member pay,
no, Tony, don't help Pat out. This is Pat's thing to do. It's a whole thing. He asks us to do it. We don't do it. Then he has to do it. Don't try to help.
We've been doing this every year since 2017.
What do you mean? You guys aren't going to help me?
Oh,
yeah, dude.
Totally. Of course we absolutely. Totally.
Yes.
Yeah.
100%.
This is your year, Pat. This is your year.
The year it comes together. It's the year of Pat.
I thought you guys have always been trying to scam me, but I'm glad that you're not. So it means a lot to me that you guys step up like that every year. It does. It's what family's all about. Speaking about family, let's go ahead and get to Delvin, the dark web, Christmas web. How are you? Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas, Pat. Had to come in here from playing a rousing game of Mega Man with Jared. We were hanging up decorations. That's what we call hanging up decorations. Playing Mega Man.
We hung up mega decorations, man.
Yeah, woo!
I'll come. What area? Where can I go to look at it?
It's not. I mean, we just started, so there's prep time first. Eventually, we're trying to be Dr. Light. Yes, Jared, come off mute. Laugh with me. That was a Mega Man reference. And you know what? We've already taken enough time with this. So I'll just simply say Merry Christmas to everyone and pass it back to you.
Merry Christmas to you as well, Devin. And I do appreciate you helping out with the lights. I think it's going to be just a mega difference to the house and the decorations that get done. So I really appreciate it. With that, let's go ahead and find out. Our special guest was mentioned, but we'll mention him again. Joining us today around the fireplace, also sipping hot cocoa in hand. Maybe he might come and help put up a light or two or Christmas stocking around the Crusader Club member mantle that we have. Everybody has a little stocking with the little picture of themselves there and their name. So we do appreciate everybody. We put them up just like Christmas cards that you would get in. We put them up all around the house, or maybe I do, but
Somebody does.
anyway, it's getting done. So joining us today is our Crusader Club member, the winner for this year's entry to join us here at the lovely Longbox Crusade Studios. It is Tony Pennington. Tony, welcome. We are so glad you are here.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here. It's almost like sitting down with people I watch on the internet every now and then and get made fun of for by my 6-year-old. But I am happy to be here nonetheless. As you heard me singing awkwardly in the introduction, it is 8 Stars Arising, which means a real flashback to the 90s era of comics where they just cranked them out in that Jim Lee style of just splash pages and colors. It is Image Comics, Rising Stars, #1, Nova Placenta. All right, created and written by the great Joseph Michael Straczynski, JMS. Some of you guys might know him from Babylon 5. He created that fine piece of television. He also, this is for Delvin, he wrote more than 70 issues of Amazing Spider-Man, some of the greatest Spider-Man comics I've read. This is a interesting comic book. It was presented as an 8-issue arc for 3 arcs, so 24 in all, and each 8 issues was its own individual arc. And it follows the lives of 113 people who were conceived the night of a comet in this town in America, hence Nova Placenta. And so these 113 people, these babies were born, they grew up, they had special powers. Some of them became cops, some of them became crime fighters, some of them went on to be models because they were fantastically beautiful. And it's just about how these 113 people came together, formed a super group called the Specials, and then they went on about their life. The comic starts off at the end of the whole cycle. Issue 1, there's one surviving special called The Poet, and he's telling the story of his 113 brethren and how they lived their life and the ups and downs and what brought ultimately to him being the last one. So many elements of the Highlander in here. There's you can pinpoint things in here that will later go on to be in The Boys, Umbrella Academy. I'm not saying this is like seminal to all that stuff, but it is interesting how there's a lot of the same themes that keep recurring in comic books. And this was really good for me, being an unemployed English major, just freshly out of college there in 99. Picked up this book and it had, like I said, Jim Lee style art, lots of words, and I felt like it was really deep and exciting because I was reading more than looking. And I was fooled because 24 years later, it's not that impressive, but I still like it. The Gen Xer in me loves this book because I love JMS. All right, so let's find out what you guys thought about this. So let's go around the horn. Jared, did you read the book?
I did read it.
Did you read it in 99 or did you read it last week?
I read it back when it came out. If memory serves, it was one of those books that took forever to finish. I want to say the last 2 issues took 4 years or something ridiculous like that. So I did read it back in the day. Oh, I wanted to add too, JMS, one of my personal favorite things that he did even before Babylon 5 and all that, he wrote several episodes of the real Ghostbusters cartoon series. And that just makes me happy.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yes. So, but to answer your question, I did read it and I read it back in the day. We can pass that over to Jason.
I read it back in the day, but it was so long ago. Like Jared said, it took so long to finish. I don't think I finished the entire arc, but I definitely read the first issue. Didn't remember a whole lot of it, so I had to read it again. So it was almost like a first read for me last week when I read it. Let's go ahead and pass it to Delvin. Delvin, have you read this before?
This is one of the few times that the answer is yes. I have read Rising Stars before. I haven't checked good old CLZ, my database, but I'm pretty sure I have a full run of Rising Stars, and I'm going to look at that while you guys are talking just to verify it. But I have read issues of this series before. Pat, what about you?
Well, Delvin, I am glad you asked. I have never read a Rising Star comic before. This is my first time.
So I'm glad some of you guys have read it before. One person has just read it. The whole series, like I said, chronicles the life of these 113 people known as the Specials. Got their powers from the comet. The government becomes aware of the Specials, and they start tracking them and seeing what kind of people they're going to become. They put them in these internment camps as children to teach them how to use their powers and to analyze them, put them under stress tests. There was the one kid who was being abused who left, and he had fire powers, and he burned the man on the way out. They all grew up, and in the end, Poet being the last one, he learns that as one dies, that power that they're born with is divided up amongst the rest of them. And there's one group of Specials that learned that earlier, and they start killing everybody to try to get all the powers. But Poet becomes the strongest one, and he at the end he survives, and he realizes he can't continue on, and with all that powers, he's got to do something with it. And he gets in a spaceship, flies off, crash lands on a planet, releases all the energy, then starts a cycle again. And the whole idea is that that's what happened on Earth, was that somebody, much like Poet, had all the power, and he came here and he let it go, or she let it go. And that's kept perpetuating the cycle. But let's find out what you guys thought about issue 1. Jared, what do you think of issue 1?
Well, it was, it reminded me of those late 90s, early 2000s you were talking about, Tony, like when Double and I graduated college in 99. And, we're coming out and it's, comics are for kids. This is high art. This is real literature, right? And then it's funny when you, just like you said earlier, when you look back on it, you're like, basically, I now realize this was like the comic industry discovered J. Michael Straczynski in all of his unused TV ideas. And they were like, hey, here's Rising Stars and Midnight Nation and whatever other ones that he did. And I'm not saying they were bad, but it's at all. And in fact, they were all pretty good. It's just, I think at that age, we thought this is the high art. And then you get older and you look back and you realize that's probably what it was unused TV ideas. And that's okay, because they're still fun. And what I always liked about them is, even if they were maybe a bit heavy-handed or pretentious or a little preachy or whatever, they're all only they're self-contained. They're like 24 issues or 12 issues, or so it's not like he's going to sit there and bludgeon you forever. He may have a few couple of heavy-handed points or whatever, but overall, it's an entertaining story. There's a beginning and an end, which actually is better than a lot of, especially American TV, that they just run into the ground until the ratings drop. There's like this definitive beginning and end. And they always paired him up with a good artist. So, in the end, rereading 1 brought me back in that same way you mentioned, Tony, to when I, right out of college and being maybe a little pretentious, but it's still a quality book. It's very much a Straczynski product, which is a good thing. I don't want anyone to take away that I'm trying to say anything bad about him. By no means. He's a super talented guy. It's just interesting to see the snapshot of the era again. And I will pass it to whoever you want to pass it to, Tony.
Jason.
I think this is a tough series to pick a book from, because Straczynski is nothing if not linear, right? It's not like you could go and say, well, here's issue 8. It's got a lot of good stuff going on, and give it to us, and then we'd be totally lost, right? There's not a lot of entry points to the story. You either follow the story or you don't. Believe me, I tried to jump on in the middle of Babylon 5, couldn't do it. So someday I'll watch it from beginning to end, but so you're kind of stuck. You're kind of stuck with this book. You got to bring this one forward, and it's not bad. It's a lot of dialogue, not a lot of spectacle as I read through it, but it's interesting, and it's interesting to see the kids, see how they were as children. You get kind of glimpses of what they're becoming or became as adults, and as you said, it starts at the end with Poet. And it made me think throughout the book, right? It's like, yeah, if 113 kids, if the government found out there are 113 kids with question mark capabilities, but each of them have some sort of extraordinary capabilities, how would the government react to that? And you kind of see them sitting around talking about it. And it's not one dimensional, right? You got some military guys who are like, somebody can start some on fire. I like this, some strong folks. And then you got some folks who are like, wait a minute, they're kids, they have rights. And then you got some folks who are like, they're kids and they're dangerous. Like if kids have temper tantrums and these guys have temper tantrums, what happened? So it was pretty deep and entertaining. And I'll just wrap it up and say it was that 90s art, that late 90s art. It looks good. It still holds up. I thought it told the story really well. I love the colors. It's dark in places and vibrant in others. And it seems to have just a really good balance. So yeah, you were pigeonholed into issue 1, but it was a good first issue.
I like what you said there. I remember rereading it a couple weeks ago. That more like Fantastic Four origins, where like they get these powers and immediately they want to do something altruistic with it. We had a better mankind with it, where that's not really believable. And then you have like this, especially in the late 90s, where comic book characters were more anti-heroes than they were definite good guys. Lots of gray areas. And I think this one was like, how can we use this to our advantage? Pat, since this was your first time reading it, how did you find it?
I found it interesting as well. Like Jason said, the art, very well done. Got that late 90s feel. Really enjoyed it. The coloring as well really set the mood throughout it, what was needed to be done. Story-wise, was kind of interested. I can see now with the extra information that you gave about what this was all about, I did have some questions, but you really kind of answered it all in the whole summary for me. And so I was questioning like, how did this comment? What was going on with this? And it's funny because I had just, before this recording, I had just gotten done editing episode 39 of the Longbox Crusade. Go and check it out. It's back in the feed. But in there, we actually cover an ad that Jason calls out Rising Stars in. And there's some good conversation between the three of them that kind of piqued my interest. And it's just funny. It's like, I just read that. So it was kind of cool for that callback to come and happen. But made me even a little more interested in learning more about this book. And so I can see that, like you said, this was definitely TV show-ish or, definitely coming from that kind of a side of the house of writing. I see glimpses of heroes in doing some things. I've heard people say heroes may have maybe even taken it from this or that around there, which is, again, a television show that I really like too. And that concept is kind of there of what people get these powers. You have good people and you have bad people. More in a real life situation of what'll happen and what really happens with these kids if they're all together. How many actually make it out? I don't know. You didn't mention that. But you mentioned the ones that finally do, what happens to them, it becomes that Highlander situation. It seems kind of interesting to me.
Delvin, Mr. Dark Web, do you have fond memories? Did this reignite any compulsion in you to finish reading it?
A few things. First, I did something I normally don't do when it comes to the comic books that we read. Usually I just go straight for the comic books. This time I read the foreword. And the foreword was by Neil Gaiman. And Neil talked about, he gave this story, and I'm going to chop it up, but basically someone did this impossible thing. And then after they did it, someone was like, what you did was impossible. And the guy was like, well, why didn't you tell me that? And it's like, well, you wouldn't have done it otherwise. And so he used that as the foreword or the preface for what J. Michael Straczynski did with Babylon 5. He crafted a show that had a beginning, a middle, and an end, and it had a 5-year run in place, and he pulled it off on network television, which was impossible. That is just not a thing that's done, as we've kind of talked about before. I also can't go without, because you gave me I can't even think of a good word for it, but like I gotta mention my gratitude for JMS and literally reviving Amazing Spider-Man. This sentence I'm about to utter is something that you just don't really hear. Amazing Spider-Man was dead in the water. It was just not good. And JMS came and he just breathed life into it. Him and John Romita Jr., and made it a must-read comic book again, and I'm forever grateful to the man for that. And so you see Rising Stars, and you see what he's starting to build in issue 1, and it was intriguing. I mean, it's an interesting premise, and it definitely feels like a TV script in that, like, can you imagine this as a TV script? I mean, it seems like it would translate directly where you've got these people that were born under mysterious circumstances of this flash that came from this comet, and then the children from that who were conceived wound up with these varied and interesting and intriguing powers, and what is going to occur as a result of that, and how is everyone going to react to them, and how are they going to be? And you saw so many interesting things where you had one girl who was like, they were like, tell us your powers, and she's like, nope, I'm not saying a word. You had one guy who was like, well, my parents taught me to be strong and to use my powers responsibly. You had one who you mentioned, unfortunately, is an ugly topic, but was being molested by someone at the camp. And we found out that that dude's powers in the darkest but satisfying way possible was a pyrokinetic. So it's a fascinating premise. It really is. And I think the only thing that probably did it in the end was that I remember the delays were just so long that I literally forgot what the story was about by the time that next issue came out. But if you want to talk about promise, issue 1 had a lot of promise to start with.
I agree with you on the delays, but there was this one issue late in the run where the page was all white, and if you held it up, you could see the ghost images of the dead specials in it. So it was like a big splash page, and it looks like there's nothing there until you manipulate it, and you see all the ghosts. And I think it's Poet talking to these ghosts, and to me it was just like I found that to be like the imagery of it was very powerful, and like there was a big theme there of like regret and kind of like introspection that I really, really liked. All right. We come to the point of the show where we'd like to pass out some candy canes. So let's find out your favorite kind of candy cane and how many candy canes you're going to give to our dear Rising Stars number 1. We'll go in reverse order this time. Pat.
I'm at an 8. I'm really interested in the power, so I wanted to see what the kids really had. So like Jason said, I think it was missing some spectacle, at least, on this one. So I'm at an 8.
Delvin, how many canes you got in your pocket?
I give issue 1 a 9. 9 candy canes. 9 classic red and white candy canes. And I thought it was good. It was intriguing, and it definitely would be worth a run through that. I can sit down and read all 24 or 25 issues and not have the 4, 5, 6 month time delay in between issues. I could just read them all the way through and actually get the coherent plot. Even though I do appreciate that you gave an excellent summation of the entire series already, because as soon as you did that, I was kind of like, oh, that's how it ended.
I didn't mean to spoil the whole thing. It's just my exuberance. I really liked this.
Oh, no, we do appreciate it. It definitely was appreciated of where the story was going in that.
All right, 9. So we have 8, 9. Jason, the Christmas Weasel Skull. How many candy canes do you have for JMS?
Well, for humor, I've got to give it 0. Not very many humorous moments in this. Heart, I'll give it a 3, man. They came out of the gate firing and telling a good story out of the gate, so I'll give that 3. Spectacle, like we talked about, it was lacking a little bit of spectacle, but I'll give it a 2. And I'm kind of, because I know there's more spectacle coming, so I'll cheat a little bit and give it a 2. And art, 3. I think it was a really good fit for this tone, for the tone of the book. So that puts me at 8, and I'll give you 1 extra one. So that gives me 9.
All right, Jared, put down that hot chocolate.
I like to stir the hot chocolate with the candy cane. That's where the magic happens.
Tell us how much minty goodness that you're going to give JMS.
Oh, man, this might be a first that I'm going to do here, but like if it was 1999 or 2000, I'd probably give it about 10. Then by about 2004, it probably annoyed me to the point where I'd give it about a 4 because it just didn't come out anymore. But then now here, I think I'm with Pat. I think I'm at an 8. Like, I think it's decent and it's solid. I think the only thing that really holds it back from getting more Candy Canes is the fact that I've read it. I think if I hadn't read it, it might go a little higher. But I did read it, and I liked it. I can easily give it an 8, which is a decent recommendation.
Well, I would, because I picked it. And obviously, even though it's very verbose and long-winded in sections, I do have such fond memories of picking up this series. And so I'm going to give it 10 Candy Canes. I will go I'll go 5 of the traditional ones and 5 of the multi-striped ones that aren't even peppermints, but more that fruity flavor.
Yeah, those are good.
Fruity flavor ones.
I hate those. Those are so gross. I want peppermint.
It's a good palate cleanser. It's a good palate cleanser.
Peppermint to taste like peppermint. It should not taste like fruity, whatever the crap. Ban it. When I become ruler of the planet, I'm banning the pepper. That and birthday songs at restaurants.
This is what happens when a bunch of middle-aged men start getting a podcast.
Get off my lawn.
That's right.
I'm going to give one last recommendation for the series. As I said before, the formula for Rising Stars is evident in a lot of other media. Pat mentioned Heroes, which is very strong in there. Yeah, and then Marvel did kind of a variation of this with Supreme Power and Squadron Supreme, where those people were given powers through an alien. Dr. Spectrum was my favorite, had that little crystal in his hand. And then, of course, I mentioned the Umbrella Academy, which pretty much seems like a big wholesale ripoff of what this was. And so if you like any of those, I highly recommend you picking up Rising Stars. They probably are cheaper in the back issues at your local comic shop if you still have one in your town. If not, check out Find Used Book Purveyor, Second and Charles, or Books A Million. They do have a nice selection of used comics at those places. So with that I'll turn it over to Pat to give us the big outro.
Well, Tony, I'm glad you asked. That will wrap us up for day 8 of the 12 Days of Crusademas. We'd love to hear from you if you are familiar with any of the comics that we have been covering on this show. Or if you gave one of our recommendations a try, let us know what you think about it. You can do that by going to Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, all at Longbox Crusade. Or you can send us an email at contact@longboxcrusade. You can also leave us a phone message, and we would love to get a phone message from you, even with your Christmas wishes. Get them in now before day 12 is over with. And you can do that by phoning in 707-532-5269. That is 707-532-LBOX. Pick up the phone. Jingle, jingle. And if you're loving Crusademas and didn't get a chance to listen to last year or the year before or all that, or you just want to hear more Crusademas, and who wouldn't? I love Christmas. Christmas is all around. I listen to and I watch.
Keep it going.
I watch Christmas movies on the Hallmark Channel all the time. I love watching them. And so why wouldn't you like listening to Longbox Crusademas episode? It's like the Hallmark Channel Christmas movies all the time, but it's Longbox Crusade all the time.
It's like Christmas in December.
Exactly. It's like Christmas in December. And why wouldn't you want that? You can go all the way back from 2022, 2021, 2020, 2019, 2017. Not done. There's one more year.
So what?
Exactly. 2017. Can you believe it? Who's excited?
I am.
I know, Jerry. You always are. We got enough. Tony. We got so much Christmas. It's Christmas up in here all the time. I mean, when we talk about giving you all the access, we like to give all the Christmas access. It's just Christmas all the time. But with that, Tony, go ahead and send us on our way.
I want to once again say thanks to the Longbox Crusade for having me here. You guys, this has been great. I really enjoy it. And once again, I was honored to be here, and I really appreciate it. And everybody who's listening, thanks for listening. Be sure to come back tomorrow to find out what the next gift is under our tree here in the festively decorated Longbox Crusade Studios. Guys, Merry Christmas. May they be bright and filled with Starburst candy canes and peppermint candy canes. And may your eggnog forever have booze in it.
Oh, yeah.
I'm Tony Pennington. Once again, thanks for having me. And now, hey, DJ Chris Kringle, I need a Christmas jam. I need it now.
Wickedy, whack.
Oh, little town of Bethlehem, how still we see thee lie above thy deep and dreamless sleep. The silent stars go by, yet in thy dark streets shineth the everlasting light. The hopes and fears of all the years are met in here tonight. Oh, holy child of Bethlehem, descend to us, we pray. Cast out our sins and enter in. Be born to us today. We hear the Christmas angels, the great glad tidings tell. Oh, come to us, abide with us, our Lord Emmanuel. For Christ is born of Mary and gathered all above. While mortals sleep, the angels keep their watch of wandering love. Oh, morning stars together proclaim the holy birth, and praises sing to God the King, and peace to men on earth. And praises sing to God the King, and peace to men.
All songs, song clips, and characters discussed are copyright of their respective copyright holders, and no infringement is intended. We are just fans that like to share our love of comics.
Outtakes.
Timing of all of our
Your
excellent
comedic
jokes.
timing, yes.
Yes. And as we can tell, comedy and timing is everything.
Well, we've got the timing.
Yes.
Also, D's notes, by the way.
Yes. There it is. Now we got the comedy.
There it is.
And we will start in 3, 2.
I'm not on mute yet, Pat.
Oh.
Can't start.
Ah.
Doing this to yourself, Williams.
I am. And it's being rude because I'm holding y'all up, so I will quit playing.
And here I was going to mention, because Delvin wants to get to bed, but I didn't want to say anything, but
It's me. Yeah,
I was gonna go on as soon as he started again and go like, "Hey, just want to point out Delvin's on mute, so you can go." But I'll just do it now so I don't actually interrupt your flow.
okay.
And I just want to say, I'm man enough to admit when I make mistakes. You know, like I'm the one that was holding things up when I didn't go on mute. Right. And so I don't want to hold things up any longer by continuing to talk and just ramble on about other words and things that aren't really important, because
really appreciate it. Yep.
That's not something that I want to do.
No. Yeah. Why would you? And I appreciate that you wouldn't be like that. That's not the guy you are, Delvin. I know it.
I appreciate being appreciated, Pat. I do.
And I do appreciate you, and I appreciate
Hashtag
you.
black.
All right. Sounds like things are developing. Says everyone stay tuned.
This is a developing situation.
There is a movie called The Corruptor with Chow Yun-fat.
Oh, I've seen it.
Oh, I've seen the Corruptor. Yeah, you know I've seen the
I
Corruptor.
don't even remember this movie.
It's okay. The poster and Chow Yun-fat and Mark Wahlberg makes you think this is going to be amazing, and then it's okay.
Yeah, it's like you have two like really volatile chemicals. And you're like, oh, I'm going to mix these together, and you're like, oh, they expired.
Well,
You don't get quite the bang you thought you're going to get.
Is he now Chow Old Fat?
yeah, Pat, we're just going to move on. Now we're going
Come on.
Oh, man.
When you're this good looking, no matter what you say is going to sound
This
wonderful.
is audio only podcast.
That's true.
understand.
No, he's true. I mean, when I'm this good looking and my voice is like this, it's wonderful.
That's
wonderful.
I'm good looking on the podcast, so they don't know.
Tony's better looking than you are, Pat. I don't want to hurt your feelings right now.
I still like you.
Hey, whatever.
I mean, I like him too. He's not pleasant to look at. Anyway, I got to work on this communication thing here. That's what I've been told.